Welcome back from everywhere you're getting to see us. It is still Nigeria Decides today, the 18th day of the third month of the year 2023. Of course, unarguably, it is the most awaited election in the history of Nigeria, knowing that we went through a postponement from the 11th of March into today, and there's been a lot of preparation from the side of INEC, from the side of our security architecture, from even the side of the voters. But how well have we gone out to exercise our human rights as Nigerians is what we're looking at today. And with me in the studio is already Akin Fatunke, who is a public affairs analyst. And I'm also here with Joshua Okata. You're welcome, sir. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing fine. I'm happy. We've been taught to be happy.
Regardless.
Look at the bottle. Half empty, half full. And I see half full bottle. Thank you very much, Damian. Thank you very much to have me here, Joshua.
Okay, I think we're going to look into the system of voting today. We've recorded around Lagos, around Nigeria particularly, and in some states we've seen a huge low turnout as regards the February 25th presidential election. What can you say particularly could be an orchestrating factor to these declining figures?
Clearly, by intent, purpose, coloration, Nigerian elections have usually skewed towards presidential.
Okay.
And so when you say we are going to have elections in Nigeria, usually the favor always go for presidential.
The drive.
Psychologically, the thinking is that the presidential will therefore have what you call a ratchet effect or a demonstration effect on other elections. Remember, at one point in time, we were toying with having all elections in one day, okay, maybe staggering presidents and governors at particular point in time until the Electoral Act 2010, as amended, now puts a little bit of a stop to that. So we got into a crescendo naturally. I believe quite a number of people, depending on what side you belong to, got into a state of ennui. Ennui meaning
lack of confidence, complacence.
No, it's just that, okay, what else?
No interest, apathy?
Disinterested, basically because my thinking or where I thought things were going to swing didn't swing in there. So what's the point me going for the other elections? Which again is a most unfortunate way of thinking. That's number one. Number two, of course, is the fact that not a few people have that faith and believe that they can be protected adequately, whether from the February 25th election or previous elections in some areas where thugs, and miscreants go out there to go disrupt. And if that didn't happen, they didn't get that kind of protection on February 25th, what's the point going out to vote? Say on a day like this, on March 18, what kind of protection are we going to get? So that is the second point. The third point, to my mind, is the fact that people have lost faith and confidence in the capacity and readiness of the security agencies to protect them. If you take Lagos as an example, you had allegedly extra help situations where people say, why should we be having the traditional why
at this time
MC Oluomo be saying allegedly,
according to the videos making rounds,
why should he be saying, well, if not that way, why that way? We are also allegedly, we had imports of videos, they may be fake. Absolutely. And they may not necessarily be fake, which is alleging that, well, the battleground will be a place like Lagos, a place like Lagos where allegedly people have been singing the tune of No Man's Land. It's now my turn to be in there.
Bigotry division.
Ethnic bigotry division and stuff like that. So the thing now got to a stage where many people feel, is it really worth my while? Those three dimensions that I've given is neither here, can neither be there, that at the end of the day, if voters turnout has gone below the threshold of what we are expecting, I think they are very potent factors. And the fact that the average third person or fourth person in a population, situation, still believe that their votes are not counting, Beavers, IRF notwithstanding. I think these are some of the things that have come together to. I must also state something. I think day before yesterday, something onto what happened in Oyo State. Hooligans went into a party secretariat and shot a whole human being. I was placed on the roadside. What do you expect to see in Oyo State as the other example? Or in Benue State, where it's been fight and battles.
Tussles over and over.
I think all put together tells you that the likelihood that you are going to be having voters, disinterests is going to be very, very, very high. And I think that's what we might be experiencing.
All right. I think I need to butt in here. Looking at the time, when this electoral bill was to be passed by the president, assented to by the president, that was supposed to be in 2019, but that didn't see the light of day until 2022. And of course, looking at all that the Electoral Act was to address, which is issue that has to do with multiple voting, people will be accredited, and of course, votes would count. Yeah. Putting that side by side with the fact that people had trust that INEC, being the umpire, will stick to the ball game. They set the rule, and at some point in time, they derailed from that rule and decided to do the other way. That on its own, is it out of place to say that Nigerians losing confidence in that particular process is not something that is ideal? Also, looking at the fact that the videos we saw yesterday, isn't it a testify to show that really Nigerians who would have come out today would have been scared? I was online yesterday on some platforms.
Josh, I hope you don't mind that I have to interrupt your question.
Okay.
I know that we have to go on a quick break, and when we're back, we'll continue with where we stopped. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. So back to my guest, Ake Fatunke, speaking about the architecture of the election at the moment. But what would your submission be on INEC and the electoral conduct so far?
Which is a summary of what
he was going to ask. He was asking.
Joshua was going to ask. And you noticed, please my apologies, I was going to jump in.
Yeah.
I was just going to tell you, Joshua, Damilola, the process by which you get to a desired result is as important, if not much more important, than the results themselves. That is the school that I come from.
The process, that's the caveat here.
The process. So if the process says, for instance, I have to clamp my hand, I have to do this, you don't believe in that process, but if that is the process, I must be seen to do that, even if it is in essence to requirements. Now, it's also possible that that process that I've told you that I'm going to do, for one reason or the other, I am not able to do it. I get call it force majeure, is that what lawyers call it?
Yes, that's it.
Or an act of God and all that kind of stuff. It behoves on me come out and communicate that.
As an umpire.
Yes! Because if you don't do that, people will not understand. When I say communicate in English, communicate in Creole, communicate in Pidgin, communicate in Fulfulde.
Diverse languages.
so that everybody. Now, after doing all that, communication is never enough. There will still be some people beyond the fence. So they might not say, I didn't hear you, or I didn't hear you well, and stuff like that. The important thing is for you to then come back, go there and do that communication. The only reason why you will not want to do that communication is you have something to hide. Or, like they say, some security reasons. So I am the pilot on this ship. You are there. There are certain things I have seen you have not seen.
And you are not willing to carry us along, maybe?
I cannot carry you along, because the time to carry you along, if I try to do it, we are all going to go into the abyss. And so what I need to do is, you begin to see some shaking. Now, why is this captain not talking to us? Why is he not talking to us? Now, once you find a bit of a balance, the first thing you do, Damilola, Joshua, I'm sorry, a few minutes ago, you noticed that, the air pressure went off, or, blah, blah, blah.
Turbulence was tough.
The reason is because of A, B, C, D that will have crashed us now. It's going to be my word against what you believe. However, we are going to get to a particular destination where we are going to be making some
decisions,
some emergency landing, and I will now be explaining. That did not happen. I am afraid, because that did not happen, cast a lot of doubt on the capacity and the intent of INEC. The jury is not yet fully out. Hopefully the court is going to go through all that gamut of the process. Why you said, for instance, the Beavers worked, captured and eliminated multiple voting, and was not loaded onto IREV on a particular instance, whereas in the same instance, in the same election,
House of Assembly,
it got loaded. Damilola, I have a fair idea. Why that will not be. But it's not for me. Mine is still a conjecture. Is it that something extraordinary happened and you are not prepared to let us know as at that time until we get an emergency landing? And then, because once you make us understand that the people, talk about missiles and Scud missiles and anti-missiles and stuff like that, may affect these other elections, time will tell. So I agree with you, Joshua, and that's why I was going to interrupt you. Hey, come on. As far as I'm concerned, it's a no-brainer. If you said this is what you are going to do, if that is the process that we have told the whole wide world we are going to go through, and we haven't gone through that process, and we have not gotten explanations why
we didn't go through that process.
Why didn't go that process, even though we landed at a destination? Hey, wait a minute. Damilola, I don't know if you have a mom, a grandmother.
Oh, she's late.
The grandmother will tell you one of the things is a blind man, and somebody who is physically cannot hear. They want to enter a partnership to fry groundnuts. The blind man must ensure that while that is going on, the one that is deaf keeps on whistling. If he doesn't whistle, the thinking will be that maybe some of those groundnuts are going into the wrong esophagus, it's going to the wrong places. But when is it the other way around? When the blind man is frying, or the deaf is frying, and he keeps on whistling, the one that can hear will know, okay,
there's still an activity going on.
Not just an activity going, it's still going on. It's not going in there. And if that should now, for one reason or the other, maybe you got a hiccup, and suddenly it's not hearing that, it behoves that blind man to now say, sorry, I got a choke. And for that reason, please, I'm going to put aside what I am doing to give that
reason
to give that confidence and trust. Trust is a very thin line that if you do not go through that process, if A does not follow B and B follows C and it does not go beyond Z, it can happen. You can have AZ.
You can have ZA.
There are possibilities. But if you have said that is the way it should go, so I think what failed was the fact that communication, timely communication again, to over communication, to make sure that all those things are in place.
But I think over the time, it has been a major deficit. It has been a deficiency in the Nigerian system that a lot of our leaders do not communicate to us as appropriately. And I think that it also borders on the path of accountability, saying, if you know what, if you have to go and give a submission every 4 months, every 6 months, please do it. But sometimes they seem like, oh, Nigerians don't care. And it's lingered on for too long, I would say, which has become a culture. Do you think we can have a change moving forward?
We must have a change. We must have a change. Yes, people have not learned like the baboons of France. You've learned nothing, you've forgotten nothing, basically because with all what you do, you get some results that you should not get and stuff like that. That is now dwindling. I believe in this particular election, which I would like to describe even beyond June 12, 1993, is a major watershed where the voice of the voter
was heard.
Is supposed to be heard. We are not up to one man, one vote yet.
Yeah.
When we do electronic voting and we are making sure that we are able to take care of hackers and what have you, nobody is going to tell you that you must communicate with us. We must understand that you communicate with us. If you don't communicate timely, if you don't communicate for us to understand, we are going to wait for you on the particular day. We are going to get whatever it is that you want to give us. And we are going to tell you, so you are coming back to us this time? Sorry.
There's no way.
There is no way. What? I want you to mark it. This is my own prescription.
Okay.
This is my own projection. Whether at the federal, whether at the state, whether at the National Assembly, whether at the state assemblies, whether at the local government levels, you are going to see more engagement of communication. If you don't do it, if you don't start it early enough, and you gain at the straight, by the time you get to the roundabout, you are really going to lose. If you do not right now are capable of communicating with the youths, if you are not capable of, for whatever reason, whether it's NSAS, whether it's women empowerment, and they keep on telling you, back in the day, talking about Chibok girls, we are marching on the streets and stuff like that, and people will just
look away.
That is not going to go on. As a matter of fact, I'll go another step further. It's been said that in Nigeria, the process of the constitutional recall is very tedious. I think it remains tedious. With this election that we have seen, I like to say to politicians, dare it. You will be shocked and surprised. So you must come. If you've done something that is not okay, raise your hands and say you have not done it right or well. You are sorry, you are not going to allow that to happen again. And you must, if some things have gone down the line, you get back to
Make amends.
I, as a communicator, believe that whether at the board level in private sector, whether in the public sector, whether in community, whether in church, mosques, shrines, this adequate communication that must be hinged on truth. 2 must be equal to 2 plus 2 must be equal to 4.
Clearly.
4 plus 4 must be equal to 8. If it is anything different, you got to either come to prove to us that it's a binary system you are using or some other system that you are using. Or you come out and say, I don't know. I just don't know. I'm sorry, I am occupying this seat. It just didn't occur to me that I should have known much more depth. I am sorry about it. And you know what? When that communication begins to flow, nobody is going to tell you or tell me or tell Joshua that it's high time for you to carry your bag and baggage and say you are not fit for purpose. That is what I am beginning to see. And for people who believe that it's just for theirs for the taking, we need to go and do a post-mortem. They now know that it's not going to be
business as usual.
Business as unusual.
Oh, as unusual. Okay.
So
Yes.
when you talked so much and exhaustively about communication,
Yeah.
and I think it's key, especially when it comes to one driving a particular set of people as a leader, whether at the INEC level or as someone who presides over a state. Looking at the fact that we have seen cases where some certain leaders as governors of certain states have decided not to engage with the people. Do you see that as, a recipe to failure, especially when it comes to people voting such individual out or in?
I see it as a hazard waiting to explode.
Could that explain the reason why they did this rush hour reach out to the people? Perhaps thinking that might be a recipe for them to be kicked out.
Exactly. Pure, simple, simplistic. That is exactly it. Now, you refuse to engage with the people. You refuse out of some
Could that be arrogance?
arrogance. Saying to yourself that I know what to do to make sure votes, I can find a way, either using truggery or whatever it is, votes
Manipulations?
to manipulate things. It is dwindling. It is dwindling. My point, Joshua, to accentuate, is that you call them leaders, I call them rulers, because they are not educated. You see, you've got to have some level of education to appreciate some of the things we are saying here. It's not, they may be knowledgeable, they may have money, they may have whatever it is. There's something also they always forget, that you can sleep yesterday night and not wake up today. You've got to have some element of that knowledge for you to know that what if I don't wake up again? What if I jump into a plane and the plane comes down? You've got to have that emotional intelligence to be able to understand that. So you must understand the fact that if you are not engaging, and I talked about timely engagement. See what has happened lately? Oh, even though they say better late than never. So this is now the time for us to now do this. This is now the time for
Damage
us to
control.
Damage control. That means you got that right. Look, let's do damage control. That means as a mother, sometimes you tell your child, don't say, "Mommy, come on, I am Generation Z," and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes you want to leave that child alone. Let he or she go put his or her hand in fire. When the thing burns,
So far you're ready to dance to the music?
he has
To come back.
or she has learned, which is where our education should be going, has learned something that who tests this boy or girl, you see the way and manner he or she will come to even beyond what you're actually talking about. So going forward, communication, do it timely. The rules are for man, not man for the rule, as the case might be. And the fact that if you do something with your left hand with the rule, let the right hand also have a compassion around that to explain, as in the example that we just stated now, son, daughter, I knew you were going to get your hand burned, but I told you are not going to listen. But I wanted you to go.
To experience firsthand.
When you experience firsthand, you've learned a lesson that you will now be able to teach your children and your children's children.
Which becomes transgenerational.
Better late than never. Now, you're not going to make that point to them. Sometimes because of the mother thing,
The motherly love and the bond.
you now pity him. You didn't know. Now you know. Next time, There are certain processes, there are certain procedures you must follow. You must let me know certain things. I must be aware of certain things. Some things should not just come to me as a surprise,
Right.
because I have the experience
I've gone through this age.
to be able to guide you. I am not be your Generation Z. I am not be a computer wizard, but I'm an experienced wizard that will be able to, with your computer wizard and the kind of experience that I have, is the reason why
Traditional knowledge.
so many places have gone the way
So
they have
speak-
gone. So, back to Joshua, you know, then say, okay, you've learned your lesson. Okay, prodigal child and stuff like that. I still embrace you,
Embrace.
which I think might be happening now. I hope.
I think Lagosians would accept.
I hope you
well.
have learned your lesson, and that this kind of thing will not happen again. Let's
to
just
give him back the vote.
let's just trust you if you are lucky enough.
All right, speaking of impact in leadership and governance, the effective communication in leadership, do you think, let's take Lagos as an example, do you think whatever happening in Lagos at this moment, do you think that the impact of political debates and achievable manifestos is playing a right in this current situation in Lagos?
Damilola, I want to be very careful to state something. Hopefully, you will be able to understand and my listeners will be able to understand. On one hand, yes, what do you have to do? I mean, are you going to take care of me? And how,
What's your plan for me?
what's your track record? Why? Damilola, I hope you won't mind. Why should I be looking at you so very beautiful? And I don't think you're transgender. Because I don't have the trust that you might have been a Joshua, and Joshua is you. I
It
can
could have been a mix-up.
I can throw all that. And then, of course, then say, yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I've done it, and stuff like that. Now, if that trust breaks, I will so close my eyes that it will not even matter anymore. Even if it's proving the fact that you are going to be my benefactor. But because I didn't trust you, you misplaced my trust. And the perception I have about you is that maybe the next thing that is going to happen, you are going to cast me into the lagoon. I will not mind. Even if I now get a Babalawo, a Dibia, that I know will not take me to I know it's not going to take me to any destination.
But I mean, just to run away from this one.
I'll climb behind
His
that
back.
person. What is it that I have done? I have now done what you call a balance of terror. You didn't know you were hurting me so badly. I kept on shouting, didn't know. I'm going to hurt you too. So once we now become 1-1, go let's draw. Okay, we can all start again. It's the reason why I said I want to be very, very careful. It's a two-edged sword. Trust must not be broken. Trust, even if it's going to be broken, must be such that it's going to be.
I might have to just interrupt your line of submission. I know that we're about to go on a quick break. When we return, Aki Fatunke, who is a public affairs analyst, is still here with us. And of course, Josh and I are still driving you to the destination. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and it is still Nigeria Decides. Of course, around 28 states in the country at the moment. A lot of elections have been wounded up because voting has started to count. They have started to count votes and across Lagos and across some other states in Nigeria, which we will be bringing different correspondence and news to your hearing along the line of this conversation. We're still talking about the impact of leadership and governance, the effective communication in leadership, and with us is the seasoned public affairs analyst Aki Fatunke. So according to what we were saying, I've said Nigeria, I think one of our revered politicians once said Nigeria is a country of no consequence. I heard that last year, and I hold on dearly to it, because after election like this and after the whole quagmire that happens, electoral violence, even violence against INEC staffs, violence against electorates, against even the voters, we rarely see anybody brought to book and being followed up. I remember, probably let's use a case of Abba Kyari and the way people followed up his case, or what's happening to Abba and all of that. We don't seem to see that enthusiasm when it comes to following up with who messed up our voting process. What do you think is the reason for this?
The reason for it is that governance and politics, like Harold Laswell said, when he described politics as who gets what, who, where, without you necessarily having to sow. When I mean sow your brains, your sweat, your brain, your brawn, and yet many things come to you. You see, it's the reason why, to resolve the problem of this perpetual life thing, if a leader, not a ruler, if a leader decides to go and stay where the ordinary people stay, and he experiences the kind of hardship that they always go through, in no distant time, the problem is going to be resolved. But if he stays in a perpetual high, he does not even feel, he does not even see, he will just be like a Maria Antoinette, the Queen Louis XVI in France. Just see a lot of people shouting that they don't have bread. And he said, "Oh, for the life of me, go give them cake." Because she did not understand that people can be hungry. So, in line with that, I know that once we don't have consequences, we'll continue to march on the same spot. And you know, when you continue to march on the same spot and that place becomes a match, it will be a rigmarole to begin to sink, which is exactly what we have found ourselves. A leader and not a ruler, arising from this and quite all this while, if let's even take our cutoff to be 1999, will know that if he says he's going to operate a rule of law, and if that consequence is going to be for somebody who is in his backyard, his son, his wife, his husband, his neighbors, and stuff like that, he has to close his eyes and say, "I'm going to make this an example so that so many other people will be able to learn." If he doesn't do that, it's like, peppering over a crack. With some time, it becomes a bigger hole.
Dipping.
We must get to that level, as an example, where your wife, your husband, or your child, now on account of you now becoming a president or a governor or a local government chairman, will think that he needs a new toy. And that new toy is going to be a bike or all of that kind of stuff. You must say no. And if you do not want to accept that no, you must show me from where you are getting that kind of fund. Is it my money you are stealing? Or is it from your mom? That, at the end of the day, will send a signal to the blind, to the lame, to the deaf, that we now have a sheriff in town who is going to lead by example. You know what that now then tell? Whether the thugs or the kidnappers or what have you, that if this guy catches you, if you are caught, you are going to be in trouble. Secondly, it's always easy when you point one finger
at one person.
I point one finger, 4 are pointing at me. The easier thing is to point a finger at you. Those other 4 might just be things that I think I am doing right, and then somebody has to point it out to me that I've not done
You're not on the right track.
What do? I raise my hand. Either accept that I've done it wrong and apologize and pay restitution, or I get off the cuff. In 4 years' time, as is usual with what we have, the day of reckoning is going to come. You either will now begin to run from helter-skelter,
or from pillar to post.
things that you ought to have, and then that's where people will now then open.
The books.
They open the papers for you and begin to show you so many things that you have done all this time. So what does that leave you? You don't have a legacy. You may be perpetual you for the rest of your life. So what are we talking? It's very, very important that the rule of law recognizes the fact that you can reward. You can reward and say, hey, you've done it well. This is your prize. And if you've not done it well, can you learn how to do it well? Can we give you a chance to learn how to do it well? And if you perpetually continue to fail, there has to be consequence for that. That is the way. That is the mindset that we have to pursue. Very, 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 very important. I dare say, don't forget, during the First Republic, we had leaders that went through some of the things that we are talking about. They had children. Tabalewa had children. Awolowo had children. Okpara had children. Sardana of Sokoto had children. Did you ever see situations where either their wives, okay, they are all men, either their wives or their children are seen as the spoiled brats all around, defiling the constitution, doing things that are not right, and then when they bring that to your attention, you now decide that you are going to
look away.
Turn the other cheek.
You are not a leader. You are you're a bloody tyrant ruler.
Okay, I think I'd like us to take a quick break from now, and we'll be right back shortly to continue with our submission on leadership and accountability in governance. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It's still Nigeria Decides, and today, of course, a lot of states, 28 states particularly, will be deciding their number one man, the man who will hand over the mantle of leadership to govern, to rule, and to create wealth around their state. And of course, we're not forgetting that the House of Assembly elections have also been done, and all elections in most areas have been concluded, while results are gradually trickling in. We still have in the studio with us Akin Fatunke, who is a seasoned public affairs analyst, and we are talking about leadership and accountability and the role of leadership in governance and how it will better Nigerians at large. So to Josh, I think Josh was trying to ask a question before we went on the break.
Yeah, I was talking about the fact that, what was it again? Maybe I would remember, but let me just go into my next question.
There's one that I think there have to be triplets there. You talked about accountability.
We talked about leadership and, of course, consequence.
We must add transparency. So the transparency aspect of it is that, like Caesar's wife, you must be seen to be above board, and that is where the ethics comes into it. You may be right, but ethically you may be wrong. And that means you have to show example at all times, every time, even if that ox is going to go yours.
Okay, so that reminds me of my question, because people sometimes try to lace leadership with one having to speak the language, of the particular area so as to be able to communicate. But as much as we understand, when it comes to leadership, where is understanding the language coming in? Is it about how to speak to the people, or what you're bringing to the table in terms of ideas that will drive that particular economy?
Joshua, I will tell you why I think, unknown to you, you seem to be asking just a question. Yeah? You seem to be asking just a question. But it goes beyond you asking that question. Because I would have loved that in a business school, the PhD class, throw that in, and let's see how people are going to relate to it. And I can tell you, for the next 1 year, you can be coming in and be doing tutorials. You'll be shocked that what you just dropped into the puddle now is what people will now continually
banter and drag on.
Because there's not going to be one line kind of answer. I will attempt it and tell you this. What is the language that the community wants to hear? Is the community ready for the hard truth? Professor Lumumba kept on saying that he wanted to vie for elections, and the people said, oh, you come with so many of these grand things to do.
Ideas.
Yes, we know you can do this, you can do that, but between then and now, we have nothing in our stomach. And so all your grand ideas will not fly like an elephant. That sounds interesting, that sounds funny, but at the end of the day, look at it critically. You can say that that community or those people are very foolish people. You can come out and say that stomach infrastructure, what are we going to eat? If you can't eat, sorry, our intellect cannot pull things together. What then do you do? Takes us to the subject of emotional intelligence. In the First Republic, a person like Awolowo decided to deploy emotional intelligence. How? Like you said, he had a vision of giving mass education to people. You know, and as far as he's concerned, like Marcus Garvey, he said he wants to emancipate his people from mental slavery. And the only way is to bring in education. Even by the time I came, I don't know about Damian, I don't know about Joshua. When your parents were going to do some caning on you, you have to go to school. You hate them. Oh, leave me alone. Let me alone. When they wanted you to go through that narrow path that is going to empower you eventually, that you were not able to think through at that time.
Just like Taisha says, may your road be rough.
Because when your road is rough, for the next 365 or 364 days, you will get much more that you can even scale. I said I wanted education for everybody. Do you know those people who disagree with him? Starting with the Ekiti people. Ekiti Parapo. No way. People. Eventually. The Ekiti people now then say, hey, you want to come and capture our wives, you want to come and this and blah, 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 blah. He kept at it. He went on. At the end of the day, Ekiti State became the first state or region or whatever in Nigeria that produced the highest number of professors. What did he do? He kept at it. They threw stones at him. They hurled insults at him. He never relented because he was so sure of what he was going to do. Today, Awolowo is a beneficiary of a legacy that can never be forgotten. He went to Ishekiri land, and at the Ishekiri land, he said, oh, no way, there's no way, and stuff like that. He would remove his shoes, went to the hinterland, and people now began to look at it. This guy said he wants to give us something, we say we don't want. Yet he's coming. He kept on and kept on and kept on doing it. What then have we seen there? It's called character. You need to preach something to some people. Like Christianity, the Bible, sometimes with the sword. You have to find a way to balance it. Because if you don't do that, you will not even get there in the first place. I remember Professor Familoni, the head of Department of Economics at one point in time, went and said he wanted to go into governorship, I suppose. So he said when he climbed the podium, said, Professor Familoni, with all those your theories, oh man, you are the best and stuff like that. So he said he went and spoke. Somebody now pulled his Oga, we have heard what you are saying. What are we going to eat? He said, what the hell? I said, Oga, if it is what the hell, sorry, you have lost this election. That he lost the election. So if somebody like Lamidi Adejibu, if somebody like Saraki Senior, Oloye, Baba Oloye, if at the end of the day they kept on doing certain things repeatedly all at one point in time, they have a vision that one day these people will come to their support. Whether you are not going to make it stomach infrastructure you're going to do? I don't know if you have heard, Dami, I don't know if you heard about a politician that used to be in Lagos, somewhere around the Lopeju. He would put buses on there, and he was taking children
to and from school.
On the day of his election, old aged women came out and said it has to be Carrefour or nothing. I think eventually went to join a court party. He was formerly with Bola Tinubu, joined a court party. I don't know where he eventually went to the National Assembly. I don't know what has been. So the language of the people has to be a language of character. You must be at the forefront. Not the Agbado thing that we see. It's only during election that begin to raise them. You go into those hinterlands, empathize with them, join them not necessarily because you are looking for election. Try to find a way to emancipate them. Ensure that even if it's just one child that you're able to pick, to now develop in a way that you can then use that to make an example. You become an example nationwide. People don't understand this. They don't have that level of emotional intelligence. The shallowness stinks to high heavens. So, a journey of 1,000 miles, people say you start with what? With the first step. I say no. A journey of 1,000 miles, you start with some steps about 2 or 3 or 4 days before. That is the only way. And that is the only way. I repeat, that's the only way to go.
Okay, let's look at, still on the impact of leadership, let's look at a subject of accountability. I know that behind camera we mentioned a couple of things, which you want me to ask this question in the public letter. Why is it that we do not have our Nigerian lawmakers or politicians resigning duty after they have failed? Let's look, for instance, in the year 2022, 2021, and of course some other years, but in the last 2-3 years, we have recorded more jailbreaks, and we have a Minister for Interior. And we are quick to put side by side Nigeria and the UK and other advanced countries to say, okay, this is where Nigeria projects to be. And in these advanced countries, when they fail the trust of the people, like you always say, raise your hand, come to Equity Clean and say, you know what, I have to leave. Why is it not a culture in the Nigerian political space? Is this would this border on impunity or arrogance or even lack of integrity? It begs my curiosity, and I'd like you to shed knowledge on this.
Dami, lack of integrity, breakdown in rule of law, all these things, corruption, impunity, tribalism, pependalism, name them. But I have one word. And that word is, in a culture of politics, we do not have a sense of shame. When you have a sense of shame, sometimes you don't wait for the police to come and catch you. When you have a sense of shame, you will not now then decide that, well, I've stolen, I'm going to use my money to pay my way around. Necessary. You will not enter synagogues, churches, mosques, or shrines. People will stand up and just think that you are much more worse than hell. Because you don't have that sense of shame is the reason why you are going to swear at Okija shrine. You go naked, you don't mind as long as I become exactly, and then you are captured in camera, and then the thing is leaked, and then you say, and so on. When we begin to have this kind of sense of shame back in the Oyo Empire, if you remember, when Alafin and co will say, well, Shibafun, you know, I mean, you've done something, and then by the time they open the Calabar, you virtually will have to go and commit suicide because of that kind of shameful thing. Comes back to the fact that because you don't have a sense of shame, you can buy your way back into reckoning. We had a couple of people, you remember Alamesega, you remember Dariye in Plateau, you remember Ogodomi Godo in Delta, Ibori and stuff like that. We'll still tell you, and yet they may have been convicted elsewhere, but they are still the kingmakers. And everybody is still shouting Hosanna behind them. And without them, certain things are not going to happen. When you don't have that kind of sense of shame, and people keep on goading you and goading you and goading you, is the reason why we are where we are at right now. People will not resign, but when we say people will not resign, I am quick to also say, you may say they are not your die-in-wood type of politicians. Tai Solarin resigned one way or the other because he felt that Babangida was dribbling and over-dribbling him at one time. Wole Soyinka resigned. We have examples of people who would rather say, look, I would want to do this kind of great example rather than. We had a Jonathan who
Considered defeat.
haven't gone through a process that, at least gone through the process, did not need for declaration of INEC to now then say, my presidency of not wanting to be president is not worth the blood of any Nigerian.
Train the
Do we still have people like that? No. Until we take away money, you go in there, you sit on a particular budget, you don't return so much, and nobody is asking you to be accountable, and you believe you can do it for 4 years after raping, you come back to the same set of people and you want to rape them for another 4 years, meaning democracy, like fella said. Is that the kind of democracy we are having? We are doing everything but real tenets of democracy, and hard questions must be asked. Is this the type of democracy will take us? Do you know how much has been spent? Do you know how much was spent in 2015? Do you know how much was spent in 1999? Yet, at the end of the day, it's going to be the tribunal, okay, it's going to be the Supreme Court. So if it is going to be the Supreme Court that's going to choose for us, why go through all these kind of things? Just now, just decide. Joshua, I just met you. I think you are going to be a good person. Look, yeah, go and be the one. If that is what we want to do.
And now the power to recall some of these our leaders, I think the voters do not basically understand their power, because we've not had such a case of so many recall of your representatives. Like, okay, we have elected you to be a senator representing our constituency, and you're not doing our face, and you're not there to speak for us. Please come back home. Let's put somebody else. What do you think?
That's on one hand. And then it's like a camel wanting to go through the eye of the needle. The process is so cumbersome that at the end of the day,
we get tired.
You will naturally, if you don't get tired of the way, you may even be killed in the process. And then people will now then say, what exactly are we talking about? I think we need constitutional reforms. We need reforms that will be such that if you have a semblance of questions being asked around you, let's find a way to shame you. And if you say you don't have any sense of shame, and that the only thing is that even after conviction, you go in front of cameras and be dancing palongo here and there and be coming to show us that this is what we have been able to retrieve and stuff like that. There has to be a way. There has to be a rule of law. And our law must be seen to be working. And for our law to be seen to be working also needs that we have to have the confidence in the judicial system. You know, also in the judicial system, we've disparaged a lot of our Supreme Court judges, unfortunately, maybe for good reason, but at least we must also come to terms that no matter how bad, this still remains a Supreme Court. They are not infallible because they are final. They are final because they are infallible. Better with that than get into a state of anarchy. The current governance that we are looking at with the 2023 elections, that is dancing to the right, dancing to the left, we are not sure if it's at the center, is still going to be decided by the Supreme Court that we must obey. Unfortunately, I must say, and pitiably, President Muhammadu Buhari has not shown the kind of right leadership that will help to strengthen the faith and confidence which we have in the Supreme Court, because he's disobeyed them. His officers disobeyed them You know, and they have said whether they have jurisdiction or they don't have jurisdiction, you need to remove your name from Nigeria's net. You refuse to understand that. And we know where we are today. We have gone so backward that I know the almighty God that we have, hopefully, and with the strength and resilience of Nigerians, will take us out of the quagmire that we have. Because what he did has not helped. Has not helped. And I hope we're not going to have another tyrant. Sorry. We're not going to have a tyrant who will now come and begin to say we have to disobey this set of men and women in the Supreme Court.
It's been a profound time having to speak to you and to get your submission on different public issues that have been making rounds, of course, in the Nigerian public space, and putting the faith in Nigerians that certain things as regards our country can work. We'll go on a quick commercial break now. When we get back, we're going to round up this season of with Barrister, with Akin Fatunke. Please forgive me. With Akin Fatunke. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It's still Nigeria Decides, and gradually we're winding up the day, and we're seeing across the nation how the voting has gone. We've seen free, fair election in some areas. We've also recorded allegedly election disruption in some areas, as we have seen videos making rounds on social medias, on the internet space at large. We hope that, of course, at the end of this whole exercise, the best man wins. Just like the saying, he who the cap fits, let him wear it. At least to drive the #1 seat of a state, I think is nothing to gamble about. Let people elect competence, character, capability, capacity into the person who they trust and who they have faith in. We're still here with Akin Fatunke, and of course Josh is still very much here with us. We're analyzing the role of government, the role of governance in election processes and leadership as a whole. And now, in this whole of election and in the presidential election, I really did not see too much of the PWD. I mean, the persons living with disability. What could be the reason for the low or poor turnout of these people?
Thank you very much, Dami. Can I start on a light note?
Okay, sir.
You just turned yourself into a pastor, and you said, may the best win. And I said, amen. I just realized that you didn't say the best man. You said the best man. You didn't include women. I think there are women.
Okay, yes, there are women contesting. We have about 24 women across the states.
And we may, hopefully, I don't know, maybe we are going to have the first female governor in Binani. I don't know. Leads me to the question you asked. After all, during Jonathan's time and President Buhari's first term, I know there were bills that were passed into law to aid the physically challenged, at least to make things a bit easier for them, including a bill to support low entry wahala for women. So why are we not having them? I know my dear brother in the University of Lagos, Dr. Anele, who has also been out talking about people of different kind of pigmentation of color, the albino. Why are we not having them? Do they not have faith and trust in the process? Or are we still doing our hop? We are now in the step before we jump? Great question. And my view, my personal view, is the fact that we need to change a whole load of mindsets to bring democracy from the grassroots. We still have a democracy with parties joining, jumping fence, jumping, cross-carpeting, not following the process to making sure that whoever wants to emerge has to be some so and so days, must be on the register and stuff like that. So at that lower level, democracy is not working. We only now then get to presidential, National Assembly, governorship election, and then we now be looking for how the Supreme Court will come and help us adjudicate. The thing is that from that world level, are the leaders asking that in this world, are we saying we do not know people with disabilities who stay here? Are they given the kind of responsibilities? So that's number one. Number two, Dami, go and ask. Based on what I know, it's usually a battle of long knives. What do I mean by that? It is at night or 3 a.m. that will fix a meeting. How many women, married women,
can make up that time?
Even if you are not married,
See,
or some even decent men will now be able to now travel in the thick of the night to be doing things like that. I believe that it is done deliberately to try and franchise people, not to talk of people with disabilities. So, nice and honest things are done in the daytime. Between 8 o'clock, you go for your break, you come back. Worst case scenario, even if you are going to be working from home, if you are going to be calling meetings, you will not be calling a meeting, say, at your headquarters in a place like Abuja, and then your woman leader is somewhere in Kotangora, or in Lagos, Ibadan, or Newi, or Abakaliki. You have done things to disenfranchise, and it's done deliberately. So as we are having it happening at this level that we are talking about, we are doing it at that low level. And I know there are people with disabilities who have and know their onions, who can help us develop sign languages and stuff like that, Braille and what have you. By bringing them out, what exactly are you doing? Look at this disability population. These are the people that should be able to help us. In the meantime, we are not getting them on. I am looking forward to shifting the paradigm. A paradigm whereby a person of disability can be, of course,
a governor
can be appointed to go be our representatives in different and diverse places. Let's begin to harness them. Let's begin to bring them onto. Don't let us continue this process of that it is only those of us who have physical eyes, physical ability to learn that has the best brains. Those kind of brains are being buried and are not being utilized. Go elsewhere. Come and go and see what these people are doing in Turkey. It pains, but that is the truth. Our process and our attitude and our mindset. A parent will now have a child with disability, and he or she will now think that the gods are
angry.
No, this child with disability can go up to become much more than people that have abilities. We need to change that kind of orientation,
all right,
and mindset for to be able to get there.
Well said. And right about now, the election, exercise have been concluded, and of course, results in some places.
Are you assuming?
No. Right about now,
Should have been
concluded.
Yeah.
Nationwide, I won't be surprised if, hopefully they won't go and lock some people up and then.
Okay.
All things being equal.
All things being equal, some places now have gotten the result, of their polling unit. But right about now, looking at the situation of things, what do you think with this event? What do you think it has been able to do, especially in the area of shaping voter behavior and, of course, voting patterns?
So, Joshua, let me say 0% and 100%. For me, I will be very magnanimous to say that for the very first time, we've gone beyond 50%.
In what aspect?
In terms of participation, in terms of wanting. Okay, when I say participation, we want to vote. We don't have our PVC. We don't have issues surrounding our PVC. We must do it. Please extend, do this and do that. Beavers is working, maybe it's not working, and all that. I have not cast my vote. Beat me to stupor. I haven't cast my vote. Irrespect. I must make sure I cast my vote. At my polling unit where I live in Inisolo, I got there and I saw an aged woman. She was already bent like this. She was sitting down, waiting to cast for that. And one of the things that I love, and I think that happens in other places. People have said, the aged, please.
Of course, preference. We are giving preference, aged, pregnant women.
And she sat down. She had some challenge, of course. Where do you know? I mean, she picked her. She went. People. You know, I said, Mama, you need to go like this. She went to the other side. Mama, this is the
age.
And I saw young people and said, Mama, this is what you should. This is how you should do it and stuff like that. And it went that kind of peaceful. I think that is good. I know in 1979 with the UPN, MPN, GMPP, you know, PRP and all that kind of stuff. I remember Baba Tokpe, Ebenezer Baba Tokpe, now in his 80s, came on television and said, in some areas of Bayelsa which you will never be able to get into, that they saw a human being picked ballot papers. Okay, I mean, ballot snatching has always been there. Picked ballot paper and swallowed the ballot paper like and just went off. So we have gone to that level. We are not yet there. I believe
we are getting there.
Diaspora voting and the fact that we must make this to work will still be, but I will give it.
It will pay me 50%. So much that I have to truncate this line of submission. I'm sure that behind the camera we still have a lot to learn from you. I want to say thank you to Mr. Aki Fatunke, who is a seasoned public affairs analyst, for joining us on the show today discussing the competence of governance and, of course, leadership, the impact of leadership on all spheres of our nation, Nigeria. Right about now, we'll go on a break, and when we return, we're going to wrap up this segment in full. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.